Hi, everybody. Welcome to this lab coat agents training today. I am here with Nora, correct?
Nora Simpson from AssumeList. Hello.
Yay. And she's going to tell us all about how to get more buyers under contract.
Absolutely. And Lorraine, will you just remind me where you're from?
I'm in Atlanta. I'm in the North Atlanta suburbs.
Wonderful. So hi, everybody. I'm Nora Simpson. I'm the head of education for AssumeList. I'm so excited to be here with Lorraine. Blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to share my screen. I hope that's okay. I'm going to share this, and hopefully it's not too hard to see. Can you guys see that? Lorraine, do you know how to allow the screen sharing?
There we go. It's loading. It's up.
Awesome. So is that too small for you to read?
It's a little small for me, but then again, I'm old.
I'm going to make it a little bigger. I think I know how. Hold on one second. All right. How's that?
Better. There we go.
So 84% of homeowners who want to buy a home, right, who want to sell their home and buy another one, have chosen to wait because interest rates are so high. Can you believe that? 84%. Do you know why that might be? Lorraine, I'm depending on you to be my.
Okay. Sorry, I wasn't sure. Yeah. Because they got used to really low interest rates, and now affordability is a big issue.
Totally accurate. Great answer. And here's some crazy data for you. 75% of all U.S. homeowners have an interest rate below 5%.
I'm one of them.
Right? So, it was just insane not to refinance, right? When people were, when the rates were so low. So now people feel locked in. We really do call it rate lock, right? And in fact, 66% of people, you'll see that 66 down there. This is, by the way, this is not AssumeList data. This is from Discover Home Loans, like Discover Card, you can see it in the bottom left of that thing. Mm-hmm. Discover Card offers home loans, and they did this survey of 1,500 buyers across the U.S. 66% of buyers who said that they were wanting to sell and buy a new home said that they were specifically waiting for rates to drop below 5% to do it. So if you're a real estate agent and you're going, I'm noticing the market is slowing down, right? What do you do? Well, not to sound too cheeseball, but here at AssumeList, we have done everything we can to solve this for you. And I'm actually just going to open up our learning center real quick. So we try to think about AssumeList as a time machine, because by allowing buyers to have access to 2.5%, 3%, and 3.5% mortgages, we are actually able to give them access to situations where their whole mortgage, like even if they have to take out a second mortgage to make up for the cash gap, which we'll talk about what that means in a minute, even if they have to take out, secondary financing, they're still able to land at a blended rate of somewhere around 4.5%. So we actually are at AssumeList able to give agents the tools to bring all their buyers into a time machine that allows them to move into homes where they will be paying a sub 5% mortgage. Isn't that crazy?
That's wild.
That's wild, right? But the theme of this, and I just decided to go to Atlanta and show you just how many amazing homes there are in Atlanta. But the theme of today's discussion is how to get 3 signed buyer agreements in 30 days. And Mika, unfortunately, these are not slides. This is just my this is just me on AssumeList doing stuff. But you're more than welcome. Actually, I don't know if our hosts can hear me, but can I can I put a comment in that everyone can see? Oh, I see lots of comments.
I think so.
Aha, who knew? So hello, everyone. So I lead a free question and answer Zoom every single morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. So if you want to see more about AssumeList and you want to ask more questions about the 24 states that we cover and all that, you can actually register for that any day of the week. And I'm going to put that that link, that registration link, right there in the chat. So it's https://homes.assumelist.com/learn. And you can register for that, and you can register for tomorrow. You can register for another day this week or next week or into the future. So it's like a Zoom registration link, and you can just choose whatever day you want to come, and then you should just come. And I can show you what it is I'm showing you today, but I can show it to you for your location. And I love that Lorraine is here to have a conversation with me, but I also hope that everybody else who's interested and watching this is going to put questions into the chat, because we definitely want to answer your question. So the theme of today is how to get 3 signed buyer agreements in 30 days. So before I became head of education for AssumeList, I taught real estate agents to double their sales. Like, that was actually the number one most common thing I did. I have been teaching a neuroscience-based methodology for companies around sales, teamwork, leadership, and company growth for the last 16 years. I've actually worked with 700 companies in 80 industries, but my favorite people to work with are real estate agents. And I've worked with 200 real estate teams, and I've worked with thousands of agents in all 50 states. So I have done it where I've sat there with folks and I've had them watch all these videos about neuroscience and understanding how the brain works and what people want to hear. And I'm going to bottom line a super expensive course for you in the neuroscience of sales. I'm going to bottom line it for you. The bottom line is, when you call people, do not call them to ask how you're doing. Just wanted to check in. No one has time for that. And do not call them to tell them, hey, I was wondering if you're thinking of buying or selling, right? Because you sound real cheeseball, right? Before I discovered AssumeList, I would help real estate teams double their sales by doing a very simple thing. They would just call everyone they knew and invite them to an event. Like, that was the only thing. If they had a lot of money, I'd say, put on your own event. And, just invite them to Skating with Santa, or invite them to, the Star Wars movie that your team has rented out the theater for, and if you have a little money, just invite people to a thing you're hosting at a local bar. Like, no big deal, right? Where they have to pay for their own drinks, and it's just a networking thing, right? But you just invite people to stuff, and then tell them you're going to send them an email to follow up. And in their email, you have your signature block that says all the stuff about your real estate business, and they will just remember that you're a real estate agent, and they will eventually come to you and ask you for stuff. I have never in my 16-year career had a situation where I could say to real estate agents, here is a real estate related topic that if you call every single person you've ever met, even the people who there's like a 1% chance they'll even take your call at all, like 99% chance they won't take your call, right? If you call every single person you've ever met and you say, there is this time limited situation and it's a real estate trend, and if I don't tell you about it now and you find out about it in a year, you will be angry that I did not tell you. So would you please take some time for me to just chat with you about it, and I'll send you a fact sheet or I'll send you a video. Please. Like, that's how much this changes people's lives. And when you make these calls, if you are willing to call, let's say 2,000 people, if you're willing to call 2,000 people and say, there is something you need to know, it may not be for you. It may be for somebody you don't know, or somebody that lives next door to you, or somebody that goes to, is the mom of a kid who goes to your kid's school. But there is something you need to know, and you're the only person that is going to be able to take it to that person. So I'm asking you to please mention this around. And when people ask you for more information, send them my way. And the thing folks need to know is, I'll take you there, that there is this way that you as a real estate agent can help folks find properties where they can purchase the property, assume the mortgage, and be paying a below market rate mortgage. And this is actually a perfect example. Here is a $1.1 million home in Alexandria. It's a VA loan. It's got a 2.25% interest rate. If someone needed to take out a cash gap financing, if someone didn't have 300 and what is the thing we estimated? $366,000. If somebody didn't have the $366,000 that you need to assume this home without any down payment or without any second mortgage, if they could just put down 10%, which is not a crazy amount for someone buying $1 million home, their blended rate is going to land them at 4.13%. And do you see, Lorraine, what they're going to save every month? Do you see what they're going to save?
Yep, $1,700, just over.
$1,700 per month, which comes to, $20,000 per year, give or take. And what does that amount to over the 25 years remaining in the loan?
Yeah,
almost more than
$16,000. Yeah, $500,000 is more than $500,000.
Yeah, you're gonna save over $600,000. And are you ever gonna see a 5% mortgage ever again?
God only knows.
I don't know. And if it comes, will it come in 10 years? Will it come in 5 years? Will it come in 20 years? Will it come on the heels of a huge recession when money's worth, the paper it's written on? Like, I don't know. But one thing I do know is that the cash gap that you saw, that $366,000 cash gap, that cash gap is going to get bigger as home prices go up and as mortgage payments keep getting paid. Right? So like that that $1.1 million home, the remaining balance on that mortgage is $749,000. But a home just like it with a similar mortgage, if they go on the market next year, they will have paid, $48,000 more dollars down on that loan balance. Does that make sense? Because that person will have been paying their mortgage every month. And so if they're paying their mortgage every month, if you wait a year, whoever it is who has to buy this house with an assumption, if they do an assumption, or a house like this with an assumption, they have to come up with $48,000 more dollars. So that means that their savings is going to be less because they probably won't have that $48,000 more dollars. And so they'll have to take out financing for $48,000 more dollars, which will eat away at their savings. Mm-hmm. Because when we take out financing for a second mortgage, it's at today's rates. It's at today's rates for HELOCs, right?
Correct.
So what does that mean? That means that every single person who works in real estate, even before you sign up for the AssumeList subscription, it's $7 for the first 7 days. Even before you commit to a whole month, right? If you just say, okay, I'm going to sign up for 7 days and I'm going to see what it feels like to do, at Keller Williams, we call it 7 days of pain, right? Like, I'm going to see what it feels like to just call everyone in my phone, 7 days of pain, and tell them you need to know about these assumable mortgages. If you do that, go ahead, Lorraine, your turn.
I have a question for you because what's going through my head is, so are these people, so how does your list come about? Are these people that have said, hey, I have an assumable loan, I'm happy to sell my house and have someone assume the loan, or is this just data that's pulling, where's your data coming from, I guess is the question. Does that make sense? Do you know what I'm saying? Okay.
So our data comes from several sources, but they're all public record sources. So no, we do not know whether the listing agent even knows what an assumption is.
Good point.
In fact, the vast majority of the time, and on our learning center, we actually have a script that we advise people to use when they call listing agents. You see where it says initiating conversations with listing agents? We actually tell them, hey, this is how to talk about an assumption to a listing agent, because most listing agents don't even know that they're dealing with an assumable home that they've listed. So the listing agent might know what an assumption is. The buyer, or I'm sorry, the seller probably does not know what an assumption is. But so can you get 3 buyer agreements signed in 30 days? Can you double your business by turbocharging on assumptions? Absolutely. Will it be easy? Will it be you just doing a couple of things differently and everything else is exactly the same as it's always been? I think you know the answer, Lorraine.
No, it's not.
Absolutely not.
Right? It takes work.
It requires an entirely new skill set, including a willingness to get out there and educate every single person, not just your buyers or perhaps your sellers, but actually your fellow agents. Which is why we built the Learning Center, because we know that this is the hardest part. In fact, we write this. We say that the biggest obstacle to assumptions is actually not finding the list of assumable homes. Assumable homes are about 10% of the marketplace. That is, I should say, assumable homes with interest rates below 5% are about 10% of the marketplace. But actually helping agents get comfortable with assumptions is a whole other thing. And I actually did this last night. I called an agent who was representing a listing that one of Mike, our founder, Mike, who couldn't be here today. Mike has a buyer that, is looking for a particular type of townhome in a particular zip code. And she found one. She's using her buyer sub account on AssumeList, and she's been running her searches every day for 8 months, right? And checking her saved searches. And she found her perfect home. And I called the listing agent last night and I said, "Hi, I'm Nora. I work for Mike Lorino. I'm an education person for AssumeList. And how much do you know about assumptions?" And she said, "Not much. I will confess that I've done exactly one." And I said to her, "Well, before you jump to any conclusions, I want you to know that Mike and AssumeList, we've worked really hard to make assumptions a lot easier than they used to be. So I just want to preface that. Now tell me, what was your experience with that one assumption you've done?" And she said, "Am I allowed to say it was a nightmare?" And I was like, I was going for train wreck, but I'll take nightmare, because without the tools that we've helped people build out, which includes our assumption transaction management team, our cash gap lenders that we've recruited, right? We've found lenders who are willing to help close the cash gap on assumptions, because remember, most financial institutions don't want to touch assumptions. They don't want to make assumptions easy, because that $615,000 that person's going to save on that assumable home, it's coming out of their pockets. They don't want to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars, so they're happy to let everybody believe that assumptions are train wrecks, right? They're happy to let everybody think that assumptions are the worst thing ever, right? They do that on purpose.
Yeah.
It's a business strategy, But for agents, it can be a business strategy to say, you know what? It's going to take me 2 weeks. It's going to take me 2 weeks to really become a master at this. But it really is a 2-week experience. It's 7 days for getting everybody excited. It's 2 weeks to really understand all the parts and pieces. But if you're willing to do it, not only can you close, not only can you get three buyer agreements signed in 30 days, you can close 6 or 7 new deals that you would not have otherwise closed within 4 months. Like, no question in my mind. Like, if you call every single one of these people and you get 3 buyer agreements signed within 30 days, and then maybe 10 or 12 buyer agreements signed within the following 30 days, you will have 8 closings within 4 months. Mm-hmm. Some of them will be assumptions. Some of them will be traditional purchase, because sometimes people realize, oh, I'm looking at assumptions where I can assume a 2.5% mortgage on an $800,000 home with a $600,000 remaining balance, but then I have to come up with $150,000 in order to close the cash gap, because I don't want to take out more than right? They come up with all this stuff. Yeah. And then they realize, oh, if I look at the whole marketplace, if I still put down $150,000 on a $700,000 home, I can actually have a similar number it's a higher interest rate, but it's a similar monthly number to if I got that $800,000 home and I put down $150K on the $800,000. And sometimes people look at the compare and contrast and they go, oh, I can still get a 4-bedroom for $700K. I'm just not going to get as big of a backyard. Right. And they're okay with that. But they're only okay with that because they've been running numbers and sitting in the marketplace looking at their options. How many people right now are going, you know what? Interest rates are 6.8%. I think I'm going to go run numbers and see what it's like. They're not.
No, they're not. I was saying, you might find those OCD people, right? Those what do they call it in the disc profile? The C people, right? They're all about the numbers, but no, most of them don't.
We actually had a lady who was so pro assumption, she had actually assumed the home she was living in.
Okay.
She had a 2.5% mortgage on a VA mortgage, in Virginia. And she had assumed it in 2023. So she knew she wanted to do an assumption to get her next home, because between 2023 and now, she'd become the mom of 3 kids under 3. So she was ready for a bigger place. God bless her, right? And she was willing to do, to sell the first home with an assumption. She was willing to do the whole, musical chairs thing. But then when she saw that she had more options, if she put down that $150K she was going to put down for that bigger home, she had more options if she looked at the whole marketplace. If she put down that same $150K, she was like, well, why am I limiting myself to only these 10%? But would she have done that if she hadn't known that the assumption was what she wanted to pursue? Probably not.
Probably not.
So the magic here is that if you call, the takeaway, the 2-sentence takeaway is, if you call 2,000 people in 7 days and you say, I have access to a way to get anyone who's creditworthy, into homes that have below 5% mortgages, who do you know who needs to know this, whether they've been looking or not? Because there are huge numbers of homeowners who have not been talking about real estate because they don't believe that there's any way for them to move. So can you make a Facebook post? Literally, you don't just ask people, is this for you? You say, is there any way you can publicize this to your network? Mm-hmm. Because what happens if you tell your friend and you're like, guess what? And they're like, oh my God, this is so exciting. And they say, okay, well, I'm going to work with you and I'm going to tell my friend Jenny about it and she's going to work with you. And this is so exciting. We have a time machine. Hey, cool. We have a time machine. Look at us. And then in 2 years, you're at a party at Jenny's house. And Jenny's friend is there. And Jenny goes, wait, what did you guys do? You guys each bought houses in 2025, but you only have 2.5% mortgages. How is that possible? Mm-hmm. And you're there because you're the agent, right, Lorraine? And you're like, well, because I told Jenny and I told whoever your friend's name is, Charlotte. I told Jenny and Charlotte, and I told Charlotte told Jenny, and new friend Jessica is like, but I'm meeting you for the first time, Lorraine, but Jenny, you and I went to high school together. Why didn't you tell me you were doing this? And Jenny's like, well, I don't know
about it. Yeah.
Right. So people are going to be mad when they find out they missed the boat. That's how important this is. I've never said to a group of real estate agents, you are on a mission to give people something they cannot get from any other source but you. But now I say it because it's true. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, we get buyers come into AssumeList all the time. They come to my Q&A. They call us, they fill out our forms. They say, I've talked to 12 real estate agents in my town. No one wants to touch an assumption. No one wants to help me. No one thinks they're a good idea. Everyone says they don't exist.
Because they don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
So it is true that they are nightmares if you don't have us to help you. So I get that people are afraid of them. But I think they're pretty darn cool if you do have us to help you. And how would you feel if you doubled your business this year while everybody else was seeing their business go down?
Yep, 100%.
All right, Lorraine, I'm out of ideas. You got to talk now. You got to tell me things.
I got to tell you things. Okay, so tell us. So, okay, we find a house, right? That I've got a client. We find a house that is assumable.
Great.
What does that process look like for then my client to get the gap funding or to get that difference?
Oh, totally great. So I have to tell you, we have the most amazing lender in the country. So Mike and I went and we interviewed hundreds of lenders and we talked to all these different lending institutions. Most of them said, we don't want anything to do with assumptions. We hate assumptions. Assumptions are evil, you know, blah, 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 blah. But we have this awesome lender over at a place called Barrett Financial. His name is Ryan Nelson. We adore him. He is so good with people. He's so smart and knowledgeable about loans. He's been doing this 20 plus years. And Barrett Financial offers the lowest rates in the country for second mortgages for assumptions. So we are really big on saving people money. That's part of our mission, right? So we really want to help your buyers save money. So definitely talk to one of our preferred lenders. And let's assume that you're already an AssumeList subscriber. You've already come to a bunch of the Q&As with me, right? I've introduced you to Ryan. I've introduced you to his whole team. You've sent Ryan, you know, the client that's interested in the property. They've been pre-approved with Ryan. So then the agent would call the listing agent, like the buyer agent would call the listing agent and say, hey, we've got a really strong buyer here. They've been pre-approved for the full amount of your home. And that's how we've never gotten a turn down. We always get people pre-approved for the full amount, right?
Got it.
And they would like to do the assumption. They would like to purchase this home with an assumption. How do you feel about the assumption? And the most common answer we get from listing agents is, oh, this home's not assumable.
Okay.
And you say, but doesn't it have an FHA mortgage? And they say, yeah, but that doesn't mean it's assumable. And you say, oh, well, actually, all FHA mortgages are assumable. And I bet you didn't know that the only requirement for an FHA mortgage assumption is that the person be creditworthy and they're, you know, the buyer's creditworthy and they're going to live in the home for the first year. That's the only requirement. It doesn't have to be their first home. They don't have to be under any income limits. A lot of people come to me and say, hey, listen, I don't know if I'll ever qualify for an assumption because I'm not a veteran, right? And I, you know, I already own a home, so I can't do an FHA. And I'm like, you can do an FHA.
So that's a good question because this I'm not very familiar with. I think I've only ever done 2 VA loans in my entire career, which is 20 plus years.
Sure.
So talk to me about someone assuming a VA loan, right? How does that affect the creditworthiness of that seller who is a veteran when they go buy something else?
Okay, the creditworthiness and the liability of the mortgage, the seller is completely free of all liability.
Okay. It all gets transferred over.
So the creditworthiness, nothing the buyer does will affect the seller's creditworthiness either for the FHA or the VA assumption. All assumptions, the seller releases full liability. The seller is only, like the seller's credit is only connected to their own payment of the mortgage, never someone else's payment of the mortgage, ever, ever, ever. And that's
okay. Yeah, that's where I'm getting. Okay, I was thinking
that's different from a subject
two. That's where my brain is because that's what I've done. So sorry about that.
Well, Lorraine, that's where everyone's brain goes. I won't say everyone. That's where a lot of brains.
Yeah, sorry, I had to flip it for a minute.
No, you don't have to apologize. Like it's just exactly what happens, right? People are like, well, you know, and you know, you've done sub-twos, but there are people who are like very suspicious of sub-twos and they say, oh, that's a scam, blah, blah, blah. And we say, well, you can think whatever you want about sub-twos, but assumptions are completely different.
Yes.
They are 100% legal, law-bound, like nothing weird at all like in the code, the, you know.
The loan transfers, name transfers, all that transfers. So, So
that's right. And so for the seller is released from all liability. The seller can usually command a higher price because it has to be a collaboration. There's paperwork that has to be filed with the bank, and there's paperwork from the seller and there's paperwork from the buyer. So if the seller says, you know what, I don't want to do an assumption, buyer doesn't get to do the assumption, you know? So that's why buyers will come to me and they're like, oh, I'm so excited. Can I like lower the cash gap? Can I say, like, if they only have 700,000 remaining balance on their mortgage, can I offer 750? And I'm like, not if you want to buy the house. These are people in good standing. These are not people in foreclosure.
Right. Distressed,
These are right. This is not distressed investing, right? These are people who want the full amount that they can get for their home. You know, this has to feel like a win-win to them, or else they're not going to sign all the papers they have to sign. So this, you know, this is not like, oh, some poor person didn't pay their mortgage and now I get to benefit from it. No, you don't, because you can't actually assume a mortgage in foreclosure.
Okay.
Now, once in a while, once in a very, 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 very tiny time, does it happen that someone is in default but not foreclosure?
Right.
And an assumption will sort of rescue their credit. Yes, that does happen, but it is rare. And it is more likely to happen in very heavy military places.
Okay.
Because the VA encourages banks to be more lenient with military homeowners and to not foreclose on them for late payments and things like that. So I know of people who've done assumptions, buyers and investors who've done assumptions where the veteran was in tears of happiness because they were able to get their credit rescued and have the rest of their VA entitlement restored, because they'll lose their whole VA entitlement if there's a foreclosure. But they can split off their portion of their VA entitlement that is tied to the property as part of the assumption, keep the rest, have good credit again, and have a chance at owning a home in the future.
Yeah.
And so I know people who've done that where they had to put down like $18 or something, like something ridiculous that was a small cash gap, but it's rare. And to be perfectly honest with you, most people are just happy to get a 4% mortgage. Most people are not looking like, oh my God, I want to pay $0 and get something worth millions, right?
Right.
Because it's nice if that happens, but you can't have a time machine and go back and buy, 150 Bitcoins in, 2010. Like, it ain't going to happen, So this is the only time machine I've ever seen, and it's very specific and very prescribed. And you can have yourself a 4% mortgage. Like, it can happen for you.
And so the max, so you have the first, right? The one you assume stays in first position.
Yes,
then
ma'am.
you get a second lien position. What's the max LTV? Because you kept saying 10%. So is it 90% loan to value?
The max LTV is technically 95% LTV,
okay,
but the interest rates are just horrible. when you only put down 5% of the purchase price, right? The interest rates go from Wall Street Journal Prime plus 1, Wall Street Journal Prime plus 0.75 to Wall Street Journal Prime plus 3, right? Wow. So like basically you go from a 7.5 or 8% HELOC to like an 11% HELOC or a 10% HELOC, and that eats away at your savings.
Yeah, 100%.
You can still save. I mean, ironically, you can still save more than you would depending on the situation. Like if the cash gap, like sometimes the homes you find on AssumeList are going to be homes that were purchased in 2010 but refinanced in 2020, right? Then the cash gap is likely to be larger than 50% of the purchase price. Yeah. If you've got a cash gap that's like 60 or 70% of the purchase price, then it won't always make sense to do the assumption and then take out a big second mortgage at 8%.
Right.
So that can be a challenge, but that's why you can sift and sort through the AssumeList listings, which change every day because there's a live IDX feed with all of the MLSs that we cover. So we have off-market data, we have live IDX feed, and that's how, basically the AssumeList platform is a dynamic platform, and you'll find different listings every single day.
So it's something that I saw. So I'm looking over here, right? And it says active and active under contract. So those are properties that are currently listed that are fed to your platform.
From the MLS. Yeah. We get all our status updates from the MLS. And it's supposed to work that we do all of our status updates every hour. Once in a while there'll be a delay of a few hours, but no more than a few hours.
Gotcha.
And also here, I'll just show you a couple more cool things about the search functions. So you can say, I don't want to see active under contract. I just want to see active and coming soon. Right? So that way, you see how all the little dots, there were red dots and green dots, and now there's just green dots. So now you don't have the distraction of active under contract, right? Look at this, 2.2%. Oh, but also it's a studio. Is it a studio? Let's see. It says 0 bedrooms. Are there houses with 0 bedrooms?
No, that means that it didn't. Let's see, what is this? So it's a renovated duplex. It just means that our data in Georgia is not always accurate. A lot of times it's not accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So you just really have to comb through things and look at them. That's why, because I also invest and I work with investors, and they're like, when people send you comps, I'm like, look at the back of the house of the comp. They did a whole addition on the back that were never reflected in the tax records.
Mm-hmm.
So our tax records are not always that reliable. It just depends. The newer stuff, yeah, mostly. The older stuff, no.
Makes sense. And here's an example where, because it's a price point in the 650s, and because you've got just under 50% of the cash gap, if you put down 10%, you'll land below 5% and you'll save $574 a month, right?
Yep.
If you only put down 5% and you have to go to that super high rate, now your blended rate is 7.7%. You're actually paying $156 more per month than you would if you just took out a regular mortgage, right? At 6.6%. So that's why, and this isn't always it doesn't always work this way with the 5% cash down, right? Sometimes the 5% cash down is actually worth it because it's, a big enough, there's a big enough loan balance at the low rate, right? But that's why I tend to recommend to folks that they come up with the 10% cash,
Got it.
Here's one where let's find out if we can get ourselves a deal with 5%. So you get a 2.43% mortgage, FHA, 78K down. So if I put down 10%, I'm still at 4.74 and saving 187. I don't know if this is going to work. Let's find out. All right, I'm still saving money. I'm saving $57 a month.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? But I'm only saving a little bit of money. So if you have
your water bill,
Right, it's true. If you have cash, I would say do that 10%. Or if you can get family to help, right? Especially with a home at this level, if you've got $12,000 plus closing costs, if you can get family to help, it's going to make a huge impact on your ability to save money, right?
Yeah.
And if you can save this much, right? Now look at that, you're saving $215. So it's a bit of a math problem each time, which is kind of fun. It becomes this way to get buyers very, very engaged, right? Because once they're actually seeing what's possible, they become excited to find what will work for them. I just have to say the homes in the Atlanta area are so pretty. Look at
I'll say that one's close to me. That's actually a townhome. So you're looking at $600,000 for a townhome. Yeah.
Look at that. Let's see what happens if we have to take out some debt. Not bad. You're saving almost $500 a month, right? And your interest rate is below 5%. So this is, I used to think, when we were first doing assumptions in 2023 and 2024, there were people in 2023, there were people who saved $3,400 a month on mortgage interest because they were able to just put the cash down because the cash gap was much smaller, right? 2024, there were people who saved $2,000 a month. Nowadays, $1,500 a month or $1,700 a month is like amazing. Now, I'll be honest with you. I thought we'd be out of business by next year because I thought no one's going to care once it's less than $1,500 a month. But I got news for you. I got people calling me trying to give me their firstborn child in exchange for saving $200 a month. You know, they're like, I'll name my daughter after you, Nora, please. I'm like, hey, you don't have to do all that. In fact, if you're a buyer, we will hook you up with an agent subscriber for free. And you don't have to name your daughter Nora. Like, and then you guys can figure this out together. And if you save $200 a month, I'll be the first one to pop the champagne.
There you go. So a couple of questions.
Sure.
So you have a transaction team in place, because I saw that one of the slides.
Yep.
That help go through the whole process.
Absolutely.
So is there a fee for that? Is that included in the subscription?
There is a separate fee. So okay. So the subscription is $7 for the first 7 days and then $79 a month. Now, if you use your lab coat agent's discount, which you can absolutely see on this video, if you use your lab coat agent's discount, you get a 15% discount. Pretty sexy, right?
Yeah.
But it's $79 a month. You can get 12 months for the price of 10, all of that. Separately from that, if you have an assumption under contract, or if you're about to have an assumption under contract, you get in touch with me and I will connect you with the Easy Button team. The Easy Button team charges a $1,900 flat fee. And what they do is they charge $100 up front to basically like get all the paperwork together and pull credit and just make sure you're not going to get a turn down. And then the rest of that $1,900, the other $1,800, they get paid at closing. So it basically becomes a closing cost. And the reason that we recommend using them is that I have folks that are working, different servicers have different timelines and different staffing. And, we've really had to go deep in the guts of the bureaucracy and the ways that banks sometimes play dirty tricks, right? So we've gone real deep and believe me, we've reported people to the VA Inspector General. We've had the VA Inspector General actually threaten to rescind the ability for a bank to service all VA loans before they finally were willing to do the assumption and follow the law. Because this is the law. And banks are breaking the law all the time. They are telling people we don't do assumptions. That's against the law. If you service a VA or FHA mortgage, you do assumptions.
Yeah.
Right? That's the law. Right? So they'll say we don't do it. They'll say it takes 6 months. That is illegal to say. The banks are supposed to say from the day you submit proper paperwork, complete and proper paperwork, we have 45 days to review creditworthiness. Okay. But they don't tell you that because they know you don't know. And if you don't know, and if you don't know how to get them properly reported to the authorities, they can dick you around for months. And so what we at AssumeList have done is we've gotten banks reported to the authorities over and over and over until they were willing to follow the law. And that's how we've had I can't say all, but we've had some of our assumptions closed within 30 days. Easy. It depends a lot on the servicer.
Yeah.
It depends a lot on whether or not the buyer and the seller actually get their paperwork in on time. And that's something that the agent has to take ownership of. A lot of agents are used to kind of being like, okay, it's paperwork time. Lender, it's on you.
Yeah.
You gotta, even though the transaction management team, like they're all experts in how to put the paperwork together so it's super airtight. Because one legal way that the banks create havoc for you is that if they find one mistake on the paperwork, they kick it back and they say, we get to restart that 45-day clock.
Okay.
Until after you've resubmitted it correctly.
Gotcha.
So go ahead.
I was gonna say, who pays that fee? Because you mentioned it's a closing cost. So is it buyer side? Is it seller side? Is it negotiated? Who pays it?
So the answer is all of the above.
Okay.
Like basically, I would say about 70% of the time the buyer pays it. I'm
can't
so
see
glad
it.
you. Oh, I'm seeing all these questions. I just realized.
I don't have. Yeah, it's not coming up. I don't have any chat. I don't have anything. So I'm just because I don't see it. I've never used StreamYard, so you must see it as the presenter because I don't see anything at all. I don't know where it is.
Okay,
I don't know.
so Jalen. So there's Jalen. So first of all, Christian, I'm gonna put my email address in the chat. Okay, I'm not actually gonna put it in the like public whatever. So I want you to email me, and I will introduce you to the head of the Easy Button team. I'm so glad you told me that. I'm supposed to get a copy of every single Easy Button form. So the fact that I did not get a copy is telling me I need to go talk to the tech team.
Oh, there we go.
So Christian, I just sent you my email address, and welcome to AssumeList, and I hope you'll also come to a Q&A. Oh shoot.
There you are.
Somebody, please don't do that. Who just did that? Please don't do that. I don't know what's happening right now. Yeah, please don't do that. That's not okay. I just said I don't want my email address to be in the chat. Okay. Or to be on the public thing. All right. Well, they did it. So let's talk about Jalen. So Jalen, can sellers offer concessions on assumptions? Yes, sellers can offer concessions on on assumptions, and often they do. Great question from Jalen. Do veteran sellers lose their entitlement with their home loan assumed? The answer is sometimes yes, sometimes no, but we always know for sure what's happening. But you might need to come to a Q&A so that I can explain it to you, because we're running low on time. One thing I can tell you for sure is if you have an assumption where a veteran is assuming another veteran's loan, there is a process called substitution of entitlement, where one person's VA entitlement substitutes, like the buyer's VA entitlement substitutes for the seller's VA entitlement, and then the seller can have their full entitlement restored, or have the amount of entitlement tied to that property fully restored as part of the assumption. So it's amazing to me how many people don't even know that about VA assumptions. Now, in about 30% of cases, VA sellers are in a position where they're not going to need their entitlement because they own other properties, or they're moving in with family, or a million different reasons. There's the 5 most common reasons we actually have in our assumption fact sheet. For that, that comes to about 30% of VA homes are owned by VA sellers who are not going to need their entitlement again. And that means that about 30% of VA homes are assumable by non-veterans. And what's really cool is that you can split off the portion of your entitlement that's tied to that property, because entitlement today is much bigger than it was in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, when these folks were buying the homes. So if they bought a $400,000 home in 2021, and in Virginia the entitlement is 1.077 million, right? So perfect, Christian, thank you. If they bought a $400,000 home and they still have $600,000 left of entitlement, right, then they can split off the $400K that's tied to that property, still walk away with the $600K, and get this, they can even get a new VA loan for $1 million if they're willing to put down 25% of the difference between the price of the home and the amount of entitlement they have. So in this example, if they're buying $1 million home with a VA loan and they have a $600,000 entitlement, they just have to put down 25% of 400,000, because $1 million minus 600,000 is 400,000, right? And what's 25% of 400,000? 100,000. And if they're walking away from 400,000 in entitlement, is it probable that they got a really good price for that home? Yeah. So they're probably walking away with quite a bit of equity, and they probably have that 100K and more to put down for that next home, and they can still get the VA loan. And what's nice about the VA loan for, quote, more than their entitlement is that they still get access to all the benefits that come with a VA loan. So a VA loan can include a slightly lower interest rate. A VA loan can include, other sorts of guarantees from the VA. So they don't actually lose their benefit if they're just splitting off a piece of their entitlement.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think we are getting the hook. And I will ask lab code agents to go ahead and edit out the part where my email flashed across the screen.
So
but otherwise,
code, I would say, what's the discount code for lab code agents?
Oh, right. So if you go to assumelist.com/lab code agents, you can fill out a form and get that 15% discount. So anybody on the internet can use the lab code agents code. And we're so excited to have you guys. And please, 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 as soon as you sign up, make sure you also sign up for homes.assumelist.com/learn, one of my live Q&As. We only get about 4 or 5 people each day. So it's a very intimate experience, right? And we want folks to come and learn and just feel like they have this 1-on-1 or 2-on-1 or 4-on-1 experience with me where I can explain all of this crazy VA entitlement stuff. And it's not bad if you come and you have to ask the same questions a bunch of times. I have had to ask the same questions a bunch of times when I was getting trained, so totally no big deal. Any parting thoughts, Lorraine?
No, I think this was awesome. I really did. I'm glad there, because I've hosted other webinars where they just go through slides and I just sit there. So this was great. As yeah, I mean, buyers. I've got some buyers right now that are just kind of sitting there because they've been priced out and they can't afford it. But also where I live, the price point's the other thing that's really, really hurting a lot of people.
For sure. And what I love about assumptions is that if you have a lower interest rate, you can afford a higher price point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
100%.
On our website, I won't, because I can tell the ladies running this thing have done the thing where they've taken away my screen share, and I'm okay with it because I know they want to.
Time's up. Wrap it up.
I know. They're like, let's go. But in our search filters, we have a filter for monthly payment.
Okay.
Because monthly payment is usually more relevant when you're dealing with an assumption than actual price point.
Yeah, agreed.
So I've seen people who said I can only afford $600,000 buy $700,000 homes with an assumption.
Great point.
Cool, right?
Yeah, this is awesome.
Yay! Well, thanks, guys. It was really great to see all of you here, and lots of love, and we'll see you guys next time.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for your time, and this is great information.
Yay! Talk to you soon.
All right, sounds good.
Bye.